morning Caleb found them, the forest was still enough to hear his own heartbeat. He was 7 years old, barefoot despite his mother's warnings, moving through the pine trees behind Miller's Creek with the unhurried confidence of a child who had never been given a reason to fear the world. He was looking for his dog, Biscuit, who had bolted after a rabbit 20 minutes ago and hadn't come back. That was the only reason Caleb went deep into those woods. That was the only reason any of this happened at all. He smelled them before he saw them. Leather, sweat, something metallic and wrong. He pushed through a curtain of low branches and stopped dead. 4 men sat chained to the thick trunk of an old oak tree, their wrists bound behind them with heavy steel links, their heads hanging low. They were enormous men. Leather vests, tattoos covering every inch of visible skin, boots caked in mud. One had a beard that reached his chest. Another had a scar running from his temple to his jaw like a lightning bolt pressed into flesh. They were the kind of men mothers quietly pointed away from in parking lots. The kind of men that made ordinary people cross the street without knowing why. They were also the kind of men who were clearly in pain. Caleb stood at the edge of the small clearing and stared. One of the men lifted his. The biggest one, with a gray beard and eyes the color of storm clouds. When he saw the boy, something shifted in his face. Not aggression, something closer to shame. "Kid," the man rasped. His voice sounded like gravel dragged across concrete. "You need to turn around and walk away. This isn't something for you to see." Caleb didn't move. "How long have you been here?" the boy asked. The men exchanged glances. The one with the scar answered, his voice cracked with thirst. "Since yesterday morning." Caleb looked at the chains. Real chains, padlocked, thick, the kind used to secure motorcycles or anchor boats. Whoever had put them there had meant it. "Are you bad guys?" Caleb asked. He asked it the way only a 7-year-old can, directly, without cruelty, just needing to know. The gray-bearded man let out a breath that was almost a laugh. "We've been some bad things in our lives, son, but not today. Today we're just 4 men who trusted the wrong people." "What people?" "People we thought were our brothers." He said the last word like it cost him something. Caleb looked at them for a long moment. Then he sat down cross-legged in the dirt in front of them, pulled his knees to his chest and said, "My name is Caleb. What are yours?" His mother found him 40 minutes later. She had followed his footprints through the mud and was already calling his name with that particular pitch, somewhere between fury and terror, that every child recognizes as serious. She burst through the branches, saw her son sitting in front of 4 chained giants, and made a sound she would later describe as something between a scream and a prayer. "Caleb, come here. Now, Mom, they're thirsty," he said, as if this explained everything. "And the big one, Rex, his shoulder is hurt. He said he can't feel his left hand. Caleb, Mom." He looked at her with those eyes that had always been too steady for his age. "They need help." She stood frozen, her phone already in her hand, her instincts pulling in opposite directions. The men didn't speak. They didn't try to reassure her or explain themselves. They just waited. The way people wait, when they know they have no right to ask for anything. It was that silence that moved her. She called 911. She called it standing right there, not retreating to safety first, not leaving them alone. While she talked to the dispatcher, Caleb ran back to the creek and came back with his water bottle and, before she could stop him, held it up to the nearest man's lips. The man named Rex closed his eyes when he drank. A tear ran into his gray beard. He didn't say anything. He didn't need to. The police came. Then an ambulance. Then, somehow, a local news camera that had been scanning the police radio. The 4 men were members of a motorcycle club called Iron Valley. Not criminals, though their appearance suggested otherwise to people who didn't look closely. They ran a charitable organization that delivered supplies to rural families who couldn't reach towns. They had been ambushed by a rival faction within their own network. Men who wanted control of their roots and their reputation. Chained to that tree, they had expected to be found in days, or not at all. Rex had been the chapter president for 19 years. By the time the chains were cut and the medics were working, a TV reporter had already put 30 seconds of footage online. A 7-year-old boy with muddy feet, sitting in the dirt in front of 4 enormous chained bikers, handing one of them a water bottle while his mother stood behind him with her hand pressed to her mouth. By nightfall, 2,000 people had seen it. By morning, it was 200,000. By the following weekend, it was the whole country. Rex was released from the hospital on a Thursday. His shoulder had been dislocated. His wrists were raw. He had lost nearly 12 pounds from dehydration and hadn't slept in 36 hours when Caleb found him. The boy visited him in the hospital. He brought a drawing he had made, 4 stick figures chained to a tree, and one small stick figure standing in front of them with a water bottle. At the bottom, in careful crayon letters, "So you don't feel alone." Rex held the drawing for a long time without speaking. "Why didn't you run?" he finally asked. "When you saw us, most kids would have run." Caleb shrugged with the magnificent simplicity of childhood. "You looked sad, not scary, just sad." Rex nodded slowly. Then he said, "I want you to come to something, Caleb. If your mom says it's okay, I want you to meet some people." 2 weeks later, on a clear Saturday morning in October, Caleb and his mother drove to the edge of town where Miller's highway stretched flat and long toward the hills. They heard it before they saw it. A low, rolling thunder. Not a storm, but something almost as elemental. Then they came around the bend, and Caleb pressed his face to the car window and went completely silent. 2,000 motorcycles, lined up along the highway for nearly 3 miles, engines rumbling, riders in leather and helmets, flags of every chapter Iron Valley had ever touched. Men and women who had driven from 5 different states, families who had received firewood, medicine, and food through Iron Valley's roots over 19 years. People who owed something to Rex and his men and had never had the chance to say so. And at the front of it all, standing beside his motorcycle with his arm still in a sling, was Rex. When Caleb got out of the car, the thunder of 2,000 engines dropped to silence. Rex walked toward him, crouched down to his level, and held out his hand. "These people," Rex said quietly, gesturing behind him, "they all know what you did. Every single one of them." He paused. "You didn't just bring us water, son. You stayed. When you could have run, you stayed. You sat in the dirt and you asked us our names." His voice broke on the last word. He cleared his throat. "You reminded 4 men who had almost given up that they were still worth something." Caleb shook his hand very seriously, the way children do when they understand the weight of a moment without fully understanding why. Then Rex stood, turned to the 2,000 riders behind him, and raised his good arm. The thunder came back, louder than before, a roar that rolled across the highway and into the hills and came back again as an echo, filling the whole flat valley with sound. Caleb laughed, not out of nerves, not out of surprise, out of pure, uncomplicated joy, the kind that lives only in children and only in the moments when the world is exactly as good as they always believed it was. His mother put her hand on his shoulder. Rex looked down at him one more time. "What do you want to be when you grow up?" he asked. Caleb thought about it for exactly 2 seconds. "Someone who stays," he said. Rex nodded like that was the best answer he had ever heard. Maybe it was.